They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed. Disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Not live, but live. Sweet,
Yeah.
Eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight on Rogue Ways, I am so excited to bring someone who has inspired and touched the lives of untold thousands, millions, who knows how many, through a simple set of nuanced and profound languages that she has mastered. The languages of dance, movement, and humor. You may have seen her interpretive dances of awareness and what used to be called common sense, or some of her hilarious parody bits on TikTok and other places. But she's far more than a TikToker and a short clip creator. As awesome as those mediums are on her channels, she's also a brilliant comedian, a filmmaker, author, award-winning creator, a mother, and an all-around badass. Toni Nagy, aka Toni Baloney. Welcome to Rogue Ways, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing well after hearing that.
Yeah!
Beforehand, I was like, who am I in this cold, dark universe? And then you just told me who I was. And now I feel like, oh, cool. Okay.
Everything makes more sense now. See, everyone needs to come on Rogue Ways so they can understand who they truly are.
Yeah, I think that's really key. I just want someone to tell me who I am every morning so I don't have to wake up with this deep sense of dread.
That's why you gotta have the hype team. You gotta have the people who just stand around like yelling good things about you and like telling you how awesome you are, and also what to eat, what to do, and where to go. That's all any of us needs.
You know, it's so funny you say that because I was just fantasizing about like, I wish I had someone to just like order me around sometimes to be like, this project, now you're working on this project and you're saying no to this and you're doing this, because sometimes I really feel, you know, lost in my own like effort to find my path. You know, I'm like, I don't know what my path is. Why won't somebody just put me on it?
Which is amazing for anybody who knows you to hear, because you seem so solidly placed on your path. You're so successful in the various different things that you're doing, and you do them so well. But I love that, because that's the type of thing that when people are sort of thinking about, like, what do I want to do with my life, or where am I headed, or whatever, and then they see that, they're like, oh, I'm actually maybe not lost. If you can be successful and still feel kind of lost and adrift, then perhaps no one has ever actually lost and adrift.
Oh my God, it's so funny you say even the word successful, because like I know that a lot of like healers or positive people would be like, don't you call yourself a failure, because you're just going to attract that. But I always just think I'm like a professional failure. So it's really funny other people's perception of what you have going on, because my perception of myself is just like constant rejection and failure and just like always trying and beating my head against a wall. So I appreciate and have a lot of gratitude for that feedback, because it just doesn't feel like that within my own psyche all the time.
I totally understand and relate. People, I think, have the same perception of me, and then I'm like, oh, let me show you my really shitty yard and like how fucked up my siding is, and like the other million things that aren't perfect. Like nothing here is perfect.
Yeah, like I wear sweatpants every day, non-ironically. Like
I actually love that about your videos. I look through your videos and like so many of them, you're just wearing like this giant oversized sweatshirt, and like I love there's no pretension in that, and it's very effective. Actually, we're all just like normal people, actually, and I hate that there's anyone trying to pretend like they're not just a normal person. So that's part of what I love about you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And those are authentically worn sweatshirts. I will continue wearing that throughout the day. And it's so funny because I often see videos and I see the stains on my clothes and I'm like, oopsies. Oh,
I
well.
I look back at something like that. If I knew that was going on the internet and could possibly be around forever, why did I make myself look like that? Like, whatever,
It's
it is
funny.
what it is.
I actually just had this epiphany yesterday because I got this shampoo. I'm not going to name the name because I don't want to like shit on the company because I know they're trying and they're like ego or whatever. But the shampoo fucking sucks. And it makes my hair just like so heavy and dirty. And but I bought it. And so I'm like, I have to fucking use it because I don't want to be wasteful. So I just keep using the shampoo that really does not look good on my head at all. And then the other day I got home from a performance like really late and I was like, oh, I don't have it in me to like do this fucking eco shampoo ritual. So I use like another eco shampoo, of course. But then like my hair was like so bouncy and beautiful just because it looked like slightly clean. And I was like, oh, maybe to be beautiful, you should just like make yourself look significantly shittier, like half the week, and then just like do the bare minimum,
Yes.
like just have like clean hair or something. And then you're like, I am just like a goddess. Like, what happened? It was just, it felt really deep in my head while I was driving. So
this is the key actually to all happiness. Like, make yourself have some pain, some suffering, and just like throw it yourself, and then for a few days stop and be like, oh my god, life is so amazing. Like, you've hit on the key, I think.
That's what I kind of think drugs are to me sometimes, because I don't always have the best time on drugs. Like a lot of times I'm not having a good time. And then I'm so happy to not be on drugs anymore. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that's over. But I did kind of realize this was another epiphany I had, or whatever. I'm being very generous with myself when I say epiphany. Let's just go with
it was a download. Okay? You had a download from the universe.
Yeah, I think I'll just go with like an idea that like the drugs that make you feel worse when you're on them make you feel best when you're not, and the drugs that make you feel best when you're on them, you usually feel worse when you're not.
This is ecstasy in a nutshell. You're like, yeah, I love everything for, oh my God, do you understand the love of the universe? And then for the next week, you are just exceptionally like devastated and depressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I keep like wanting to not want to do ecstasy.
Yeah. Please God, let's never do ecstasy again.
Let's not do that again. But although, what a great time.
Yeah, it was really great while it lasted. This is what I've always heard, I've never done salvia. And I've watched people do salvia. And they come back and it's like a minute or something from my perspective. And they come back and they're like, holy shit. They're like, that was like 80 years. And I'm like, that sounds like torture. Why did you do that to yourself? I don't want to ever do that. Ever. That is
so funny. Actually, one of my favorite internet videos ever is a guy doing salvia in a car. It's like, I think it was even pre-social media, and like a cat somehow like gets on his windshield. We should find it and give it in your show notes, because it's honestly, I think, the best video ever made.
I want to see it now.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I feel like you do drugs like this and like the weirdest things happen, and they're actually happening in reality, but like they shouldn't be happening, and they would never happen if you weren't on drugs, like a cat suddenly appearing on your windshield. And so then you're like, well, is this real or is this the drugs? And then it's very confusing.
Right. It's almost like drugs have a quantum field that just attracts bizarreness, or just maybe it just attracts animals, you know? Like, I've had a lot of strange animal experiences, and I've heard of others too. So maybe they just are like, oh, cool, you're kind of tapped into something mystical. Let's give you a medicine.
Well, so when I work with people spiritually and I tap in and I talk to their guides and their allies and whatever woo-woo stuff, and so frequently their animals will show up and just start like sit on their shoulders or their laps, and they're like, they don't ever do this. And I'm like, they like feel it. They know it. They want to be a part of it.
That's cool.
It is pretty cool, actually. The other day I was like, and your cat is here And like on the spiritual plane, and she's like, "Oh, my cat literally just arrived here, like on my lap too." I was like, "Oh, okay, cat's here and here."
And that's so funny. Your cat is on your metaphoric lap. It's like, yeah, bitch, the cat's on my lap.
Like, I see. Well, I was going to ask you the pointless question of the episode before we got off into all of that. And the pointless question of the episode today is, what the shit is going on in the world?
Oh, shit.
It's a big pointless question.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's talking about the paradigm shift. I think the transition into the age of Aquarius, and that we're like having either some great awakening or some great reset, according to like the lizard elite. I think they call it the great reset, where we're all like,
they want to go
officially
back.
Yeah,
we want to go
cogs.
forward.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Some of us want to go I think you just did it. Some of us want to go forward and some of us want to go backward. And maybe some of us want to just like step to the side,
and
like
watch it.
Yeah, I'll just like do a little parallel universe jumping. I kind of think that like from a spiritual perspective, like what was I thinking? Oh, I was thinking of like the rhetoric around resurrection, and how there was always this like, there will be a resurrection of Christ as this like promise or this concept. But if you look at that as a metaphor, it's like, what does that mean to have a resurrection? It kind of means like, the way I am feeling it in my body is a reawakening or a rebirthing of already existing ancient knowledge. Like, I always think it's funny when like, if like I imagine someone from like a spiritual or a spiritually attuned person, let's say from like 50,000 years ago, who was like a Buddhist monk, or I don't know if Buddhism was around them, but let's just say like a comparable person, and that they were to like travel 50 years into the future and then like be around a scientist, and that scientist is like, yo, like it turns out that everything is connected, and like I built this like CERN hydro collider and then like push these molecules together, like creating like a ripple in the universe. It just like fucked everything up, and now there's Mandela effects or whatever. But I learned that we are all one, and I bet that person would be like, yeah, you fucking dumb shit. So it's like, have we learned anything in 50,000 years? I'm not so sure. I think we've just learned different ways of communicating what we already knew.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, nothing is new. We're not learning anything new. We're just learning new ways to talk about what is that innate, inherent knowledge that we are all fundamentally born with and gifted from the universe and from the great beyond.
Well said. I keep having that same realization, and it's like the people who are like, oh, did you guys realize like these injections aren't actually effective? And we're like, yeah, we were actually saying that for like 2 years. And they're like, well, how did you know? The news just said it. And you're like, oh my God. It's the same sort of thing. They're like, how did you know everything was connected? Like, we just found out with science. And you're like, yeah, but actually we've known forever, right? Through experience and other things. It's like each person has their different requirements for their ability to accept information or understanding. And I guess we're just taking the really slow road of getting everyone there or something.
Well, I also wonder like about the concept of intuition within a patriarchy. And I know a lot of people are like, a patriarchy, but I think that to me, patriarchy is really embedded in the concept of hierarchy. And the way that I see this is that, at one point, if you were in a small community, you had to move fast, you had to act quickly. People were afraid for their lives, running from tigers, like whatever the hell was going on back then. Who knows? It could be a very advanced society in the subterranean civilization of Agartha. I don't fucking know. But at some point, I think hierarchy was developed because a tyrannical situation is like easier to control. So if you have one overlord or one leader, and that leader is telling people what we were just saying in the beginning, like sometimes I wish my overlord was just telling me what to do so I didn't have to do all the work of contemplating and pontificating on my own. So hierarchy was, I think, developed as a means of which to organize and structure society in the way that we've come to know it, in what I would understand as a patriarchal society. But within hierarchy, there is this like need to convince others that you are correct. And so in that effort to convince others you are correct, you're asking them to trust your word over their intuition, because your ideas aren't always correct. But if everyone just does what you say as the grand supreme leader, it's at least more organized and more structured. It's not necessarily better for everyone, but it's easier to manipulate. So I kind of think that in the patriarchy, we have been programmed and conditioned to be in this state where, like, you know, facts or experts or something being empirical, and everything has to be proven through words. And there is this like scientific method. Oh, I could go on and on about the father of the scientific method, Francis Bacon, not the painter, PS, but the scientist. Let's put a pin in that. But basically, I think we've been asked to leave our intuition behind. And I think we've been asked by culture and by society, because of an organizing principle, to not trust our own intuition. And that is why we look to authority figures, we look to the news, we look to media, we look to teachers, whomever, to tell us what is truth rather than to feel what is truth.
Yeah, you just nailed that. How well said is that? And the purpose for why it came into existence in the first place, you know, in response to maybe some crisis or cataclysm or whatever that we all had to get through. That was the most effective way perhaps to get through it. But now it's a bit imbalanced and it's no longer possibly serving us very well. And perhaps we all need to get back to our intuition and our interconnectedness, and trust some of that and be less reliant on this very, very slow. It's very stable, but it's unstable in the long term, I guess. This patriarchal, what you're describing as patriarchal and hierarchical sort of situation. It's also not very fair, because there's so many people who much more deserve whatever we want to call power or authority than the people who actually get it. Because we have such limited ways of determining like who is effective, appropriate, or, you know, to be respected or whatnot. Very narrow ways.
There's a lot of studies around the difference of leadership between like someone who's more introverted and not, you know, technically seen as like an alpha personality are amazing leaders, but we tend to vote people into office or to have CEOs or to have people in leadership positions that exhibit like a very kind of narrow personality type. They're often extroverted, they're often aggressive or you know, really forceful in their thoughts. They often have a fixed mind. I don't want to necessarily say closed, but a fixed perspective, where there's like tons of studies talking about how like people who are more introverted or potentially, you know, more open-minded and less dogmatic, or have more of a, you know, like they're not so, it's like, what's the opposite of fixed? Flexible. Did we say that at the same time? Flexible. Yes. Thank you. And like, remember when John Kerry was, I mean, not that John Kerry is some example of a good leader, but he was flexible in a certain sense about his policies or how he was voting. Like he seemed to kind of be like contemplating information and changing his mind. And what was the rhetoric against John Kerry is he's wishy-washy.
And he speaks like French like a gay man or something. You're like, what?
What?
Okay.
Yeah, but I really remember him being wishy-washy. And that was a bad thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Him like changing his mind. And it's like a person that doesn't change their mind isn't thinking. Mm-mm. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that time period too, because I'm sure it wasn't like the start of the attack ad, but it was definitely the proliferation of the use of attack sort of mentality in politics and ads. And there was even parody videos online. One of my favorite first early internet videos was one that was a parody of the attack ads against John Kerry, and it was like, John Kerry will eat your babies, and it was hilarious.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that, actually. I do remember that.
And I was like, well, yeah, like what's wrong with this guy? It's the same as, I don't remember who, someone cried somewhere recently in the past 4 years, and it was like a big deal, like that person cried, they're weak. And you're like, well, I mean, 100% of people hopefully are crying sometimes. If not, like something's gone deeply wrong with their lives.
Yeah, it's interesting what's seen as weak and what's seen as strong, because somebody, exposing their emotional selves and being vulnerable and open, like that is really strong. And somebody just getting super angry and punching someone, that's actually pretty weak. That's not really thinking things through or working it out or doing a lot of the internal effort of understanding. You're just like expressing yourself in a fit of rage. And I don't see that as strong, but I think that's, again, this is part of like a certain type of, I have to go back to the word like patriarchal thinking of what is strength. It's often within the lens of male strength, and what that looks like. But all other sorts of strength is exhibited. Not that male strength or physical strength isn't valuable. Of
Right.
course it is. But it's always funny, that show Naked and Afraid. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, where it's kind of obvious that like the dudes have like a really profound strength, but the women have this like really deep emotional strength and endurance, and it's kind of beautiful. Like when, I mean, I haven't seen the show in a while, but when they really like, and this is just personality traits, like some women may have these traits and some men may have these traits. I think it can be just like distributed evenly throughout genitalia, but
Yes.
it's like the kind of personality that can just withstand a lot, that's very patient and can just hold a lot within their heart and in their center and in their being, and can just hold space kind of. And then there's the person that's maybe more action oriented, and both are so necessary. Like both personalities are really necessary. And that's what I thought was like kind of the most beautiful exhibit of that show, Naked and Afraid, was demonstrating the need of that balance of yin and yang energy.
I love that. I never would have thought that that show would bring that out, but I see it and I understand it, and you're absolutely right. And it's like you said, it doesn't matter what your genitalia look like, but those two energies are both needed in desperate balance. There's this book by Ursula K. Le Guin. I don't know if you're a reader or if you know Ursula K. Le Guin. She's one of my favorite sci-fi authors because she especially explores these types of concepts in societies, and she gets to play with them because she's sci-fi, so it's like alien societies. What if it was like this, right? So she's really cool. She's a really fun philosophical thinker in that way. And her book, The Word for World is Forest, the creatures that are humanoid on this planet have this exceptional divine feminine leadership as well as this exceptional divine masculine leadership, and together this is part of why they're so integrated into their natural surroundings, but also very advanced spiritually and in a way technologically, but not in a way we would think of technology. And I'm like, this is the perfect society. Ursula Quinn created it. We just have to become like these little green guys and be in balance with that, with nature and ourselves and all of the energies that humans possess, divine masculine and divine feminine.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems that might be, or like a disconnect in conversation that is happening when people, or fine, if I were to talk about the patriarchy, is that it's like to say that means that inherently what has been valued through the patriarchy has no value. It's like, no, there is value to all of that. It's just overvalued. And then these other aspects are really undervalued. And I think that's kind of where the conversation needs to be, is like, how do we have a more like, it's like equal opportunity valuing? That is the real conversation. And it's kind of interesting how defensive and maybe I understand actually, is that the fear is that, oh, to value someone else means that I have to devalue myself. And it's almost like I have a friend who has multiple children, and she said this thing to me and I thought it was really beautiful. She was like, it's not like when I gave birth to my second child or my third child that I had to like take the pie or take my heart and like give half of my heart to my second child, and then I had to give a third of my heart, and then I just split into thirds for my third child. She was like, my heart grew exponentially.
Aww.
I was like, that is so fucking beautiful. And I feel like the same thing needs to be happening in the conversation around like, what is the end of patriarchy? It's not about like taking the role of men and devaluing it. It's about like expanding the value of humanity, and not, obviously, all genders. It's not just women. It's like all sexual orientations, all genders. It's not taking away, it's adding, it's expansive. And I think that's why the abundance attitude is really important versus the scarcity attitude that we keep, or that keeps being pushed on us within the collective programming of the media and politics. And there's not enough food. There is enough food. Russia and the United States alone have enough agriculture to feed the world. Like, starvation is a choice. It's a political choice that boils down to distribution. It's not a natural phenomenon. There is plenty of resources for everybody. It's just hoarded and kept from people intentionally, because that is what the capitalist system is creating. It's like, you cannot have extreme wealth without extreme poverty. That they exist within tandem of each other, because they are actually conjoined twins. They cannot exist without each other. So if and I'm sure from the one hand, the extreme wealthy is like, oh my God, if we were to redistribute my wealth, like, who would I be? They would just need you to do an intro to them. But like that, so that is the fear that we have to get over, is that you're not losing anything by others having. You're just expanding in a different way. But I get the fear, but I also think, come on, like, fear is the most toxic emotion we can probably feel. Like, let's face it.
Well, it's the least helpful too, because it just plummets you into inaction or reactive action that is not going to help the situation. It's just going to push it further into imbalance. All of your points there, you're so wise, Toni. There's so many good things. And especially with that wealth thing, I keep thinking about these people who will come out and they'll be like, oh, let's all give to this cause that I'm promoting this month. And I'm like, bitch, you've got like $12 billion. Why don't you just give? Like,
yeah.
Why am I giving? Yeah. What are you talking about? And what also tends to be true is that the poorest among us give the most as a percentage of their value, right? And then these richer people give the least, even though people are like, oh, Bill Gates gave this much money. I'm like, yeah, but look at his actual wealth, and then look at how it's all actually going back to him. We could talk about that too, but he gives almost nothing. Actually, he's not a philanthropist. Like, this guy's just a psychopath. Like, we're the philanthropists. We give someone $20, $100, $5, whatever it is. Like, this is a huge part of for me at least, my overall value.
And it's also, I think we've seen it so many times before. It's like, people that have a lot of wealth are often like, they feel this need to protect it because it's part of their identity and part of their power and part of what their self-esteem. So it's like they want to protect it. And then people who have less are oftentimes more generous and more giving with their time and with their resources and with their food or whatever, because they actually don't have to hold on to it as tight, because they've had to form a sense of self beyond capital. And I think that's where things get really psychologically tormenting. There is a lot of, oh, poo-hoo, poor little rich girl or poor little rich boy, attitude. But at the same time, it's like, I do think there's a deep psychological suffering when you equate your sense of value with your economic value, and how terrifying that is to exist in a society where you push your economic value out because you're like, I'm special, I'm worthy, but then you are afraid that people are using you. And so then you're like, oh, I can't be around anybody because they're all going to use me, but they have to know I have money, so they think I'm special, but then I have to be alone so they don't use me. It is a real mind fuck. And I think that everyone is suffering from this like capitalist system. It's not like, maybe Leo DiCaprio isn't. He seems like really happy, but like, I think everyone besides Leo DiCaprio really suffers from capitalism.
It is really, really difficult to have compassion for me, having grown up so poor for rich people, but I've learned over and over again in my life to have it. Actually, I've been forced to. I taught in Bahrain to the princes and princesses of the ruling elite royal family there. And so these are very, very wealthy children. And I've also taught in places where we have a 90% poverty rate, and all the kids there like don't necessarily have homes, or, you know, and in both situations, I saw the exact same amount of the exact same types of complexes.
Neglect.
Neglect and mental issues. And that blew my mind. And I was like, holy crap. We really can't. We actually do have to have compassion for everyone. Like, everyone really is suffering. In addition to all of those things you just listed, that identity, like you said, is so empty, and it's not. And actually, we could go into identity in general, right? Because most people's identity are somehow connected to some creation or production of our media or social milieu, instead of something that's like deep within them, because we don't have that. We don't have the infrastructure to help people find their heart and their soul and their identity as themselves, actually. It's all like stuff and things and pre-formatted like Barbie dolls and whatever. It's very sad. We're all lacking in our little identities that we need.
Well, I think the from a Buddhist perspective, which I've done a couple 10-day silent meditation retreats, and wow. I have some Buddhist teachings, although I have lots to learn. But, you know, one of the things that the retreat I was on most recently was really kind of like the theme of it was that all your thoughts, your identity, your nationality, your gender, your race, your everything, it is all an illusion. It is all an illusion, right? So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that your experience being a race or a gender or a sexuality isn't real, but the reality is that all of it's an illusion. And so that to me was a really interesting thing to kind of accept, because I felt very like, oh, you know, what's a good word? Unhinged, you know, like unraveled. And it was scary. It's scary to and of course we all maybe have this idea of like our programming, our conditioning or whatever, and how that impacts our thought patterns. But, you know, basically what I came to understand is that everything I think in language is merely my programming. It's just anything I'm blah, 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 blabbing about, you know, I am confined by my microchip of my conditioning when I use language to communicate. Like nothing I say is divorced from my programming. No matter how much I try to be aware of it or notice it or what have you, like that is the function of the ego. It's like an imprint of culture and society. But we are not our egos. We are not the voice in our head. We are not the voice of judgment in our head. We're not the voice of thought in our head. We are the observer of the thoughts. And that observer doesn't fucking think, it observes. It's the ego that's thinking and talking and da, 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 da. But who the fuck is listening? That's you, the listener, not the talker. So it's like, I think that the talker wants identity. The talker wants to fit into a box or to have groups because you feel safe within a group. You know, if I'm part of something, then I don't feel so lonely because that observer doesn't fucking say anything in my head. I'm just going on like talking to the motherfucking observer, and that observer is just like quiet as all hell, not answering any of my fucking questions, at least not through words. You know, maybe through a feeling your observer might communicate to you. So I think that's like the horror of being in one's head, is like that quiet fucking observer that is actually you, that you cannot really connect to. But you can, but you can't. You can and you can't. I don't know. It depends on who you are and what day it is.
Say something, motherfucker.
Yeah, fucking what? Who are you? Who am I?
It just reminds me of this time where my mom took me snowboarding when I was young, and she like the whole way up the mountains, like an hour and a half, I was like blah, 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 and then like all the lift blah, 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 and then all the like, and then drive back down blah, 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 and finally I was like, I don't think my mom said anything all day. I think she just sat there and listened to me for that whole time. Like, wow, I'm an asshole. But also, like, I guess she's had that experience of being the observer. Like, this is maybe part of motherhood. I don't know.
Oh, that's so fucking funny.
It's just free eternal therapy.
Well, it's really weird that you say that because, okay, in this retreat, I like came up with this analogy of like the family in my head, right? So it's like I had the voice in my head that was like the child, okay? And that voice was like the one that was like blah, blah, blahing in the car, like da 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 da. Then I had the voice of my head that was the judgment of the voice. And that was like my sibling. Well, that's a stupid thing to think. And like, why are you always thinking about that boy? He doesn't even like you. And da 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 da. So then I had like me and like my sibling, and I was the voice, and then the sibling was the judgment. And then there was like, to me, the father figure that was like, hey, stop thinking about that, and you should do your meditation mantra, you know? And then I'd be like, and so I had the voice like telling me to do the meditation, and like that would like say the mantra, and that was like the father figure. And the observer, the one that was silent, was the mother. And so I had this like family of 4 in my head.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I saw my head is a family, you know? So it's interesting that you say you had this story of your omnipresent listening mother, because that's kind of how I feel about the family of voices in my head.
Yeah, that's actually really helpful, because then you can start to see how each of these sides of yourself is actually serves a purpose somehow, right? I think of this with the planets. People always want to hate Saturn. They're like, Saturn's the evil, like bad guy, like father, black sun, like whatever, the Saturn worshiping cult and all of this. And I'm like, yeah, but like Saturn's also the thing that like gets your shit together and like make sure you've got a structure that can like get the things done, and like that's a good thing. Those are good things. All the planets have some good things. I loved your.
I think I'm ruled by Saturn.
Oh, really?
I'm a Capricorn.
I don't know enough to know for sure.
Yeah,
That sounds right
think,
though. Capricorn's very Saturnian.
Yeah, I think I'm ruled by Saturn.
That's why you get so much shit done.
I get a lot of fucking shit done. Hell yeah.
I loved your recent video that you did, that I think it was recent at least, where you're like, do you ever feel unhinged? And then you find out that like Mars is butt fucking Saturn.
Butt fucking...
Whatever it
I
was.
think I said Mars was butt fucking Pluto. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, yes, I do feel that way. It's funny though, right now supposedly Mercury's in retrograde, but I'm like, oh, I've been having some of the best communication in my life, so, and I'm about to go on a vacation. So I'm doing Mercury in retrograde completely wrong, apparently. I'm supposed to be like breaking down.
It's funny. I actually really thrive in Mercury retrogrades. So I think
Maybe
it's a little bit. Yeah, I think it's a little bit about where you are at the moment. Like I didn't always. There was a time where I'd be like, ugh! But now I've actually had some really good Mercury retros. Yeah.
I wonder why.
I don't know why either. Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe I just like did the work.
I'm just really good at shadow work, actually.
Yeah, I'm just like a fully evolved being. But I've been having some great Mercury retrogrades. So
take that, everybody.
Yeah, like I think it can be a good time. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yes. Well, speaking of your videos, I really love that your videos are so hilarious, because everyone needs more humor. But you also have all of this social critique, and you have all of this, you mix it with like the spirituality and the conspiracy and all of these things. And I don't think enough of us get to laugh about all of that. And so it's really effective and helpful. But also, like we've talked about, you're very lacking in pretentiousness, which is beautiful. You have a lot of humility, which I think we need, and vulnerability, which I think we need too. And I think that combination is like this exceptionally healing. I think that's why so many people love your videos. I don't know how long I've been seeing your videos, but they like pop up and I'm like, this woman's amazing. Like, she's a genius. This is so cool. I just love it. Have you always been like this? Did this just come together naturally because this is who you are? How intentional is it?
Oh, I mean, that's an interesting question. I have been making videos for a really, really long time. Like over, oh man. Oh God. Like a long time. Yeah, I'm like, many fucking years, and many different iterations of like being behind the camera and being in front of the camera and like how to relate to the camera. And like for a while, I kind of started off at the beginning of YouTube, and I would do like these kind of front facing videos where I created 3 different characters of myself. I had like, my name is Toni, And that was like kind of my opinion. And then I had Antonia, which is my full name. And that was like the intellectual opinion. And then I had Tanya, which is like my kind of like, I mean, like my kind of like other side of me, you know, that's like maybe like a bitchier side of me, like a shadow side of me. Yeah. And so I would take a topic and I would explore the topic from these different vantage points of like myself, my intellectual self, and like my shadow self. And that was like kind of like the first experimenting I did like with the camera. And then like I kind of got self-conscious, I guess. I don't know what happened. And then I started like only filming people for a while. And I would only be behind the camera and really work on my writing. And I would not be in front of the camera. I felt really self-conscious in front of it. And then I kind of was like, I got sick of people and their stupid schedules and being like, well, I don't know if I can do this. Or like, we've been doing this for an hour and now I have to eat, you know, I'd be like, what? Like, I think it was like my work ethic that I was like, I can't fucking work with actors anymore, you know? So then I just started putting myself back in front of the camera. I've always edited my own work and written my own work and like done most of the filming myself, unless I had someone that was like down to do that. Like, again, it was like people's schedules. The thing was people's fucking schedules and like not being able to do things when I wanted to. And I think that's what brought me into like doing so much myself, which is definitely not your question. I think you were asking about humility. Oh yeah, I told you before, I have been like rejected so much in my life. You know, like I put myself out there a lot, which means that the amount of rejection I've gotten is like hysterical. I could write a 700-page memoir purely on rejection. And I think like ultimately I had to just really settle into that and like not get too, it's like if you get too connected to praise, then you get as connected to rejection or people saying like you're a piece of shit on the internet, which happens, you know. And so it's like both of them I kind of hold really lightly in my hands, like someone saying something really kind and someone saying something really shitty. I can't grasp onto either of them. I just have to let them both be. Obviously I'm a human, so if someone says something kind, it like I feel fuzzy in my heart. Then if someone's like you're a fucking cunt, then it's like, oh, okay, you know. Sometimes I get a lot of like weird trolls that like say things that are like hilarious and like really interesting, and like there are ways of like trolling me, and then I always like screenshot it. I'm like, I should make a song of this. Like, this is so interesting. Is that iambic pentameter? Like, this guy's a poet. But I think that like I think humility is just like recognizing that what is humility? God, what an interesting question. It's just like not thinking that you have to be better than people. Like, what am I just like defining a word right now? But I do believe that. Like, who the fuck is better than anyone? Like, that's such a, it's like, I think everyone is really funny and really interesting and really creative. And certain people just have a compulsion to broadcast that. Like, I know so many people that are very fucking funny, but every time I say something that's funny, I happen to write it down. And then I'm like, remember you said that funny thing, Toni? Like, now write more funny things. And that's the only difference between me and another person. I think so many people are fucking hilarious. They just like aren't trying to prove it all the time. So maybe I'm just like trying to prove something. I don't know. I mean, these are
the existential questions.
Yeah. So I think I'm probably trying to prove something a little bit, but like also maybe not. But I must be, because why am I doing this?
I like to think you're doing it to help the rest of us, but that's my own projection because that's what I like.
Well, I like that too, but then it's also kind of crazy to think that anything you do helps another person.
Yeah. And it's
like,
also
that feels wild. I'm really helping myself.
Right. I also am very aware that I like helping, so it really is still just for me. It's very selfish.
I know. I love fucking helping. I feel most myself when I'm helping someone. I really enjoy being there for people, and like if someone like I'm a great person to spend your birthday with, you know, I will treat you right. You know, I'm a really good birthday buddy. I like being a good friend. Yeah, it's like maybe I just like want to be a good friend to people,
To the whole world.
to the world. Yeah. I mean, it's nice that you say that I help people because I love helping people, and it's cool to think that what I do helps people. I don't know if I ever really put that together.
Oh, you're absolutely helping people. Like I said, the humor, bringing the humor, especially to the topics you do, it not only allows people to have the ability to be flexible, because we're like really attached to something, right? And then you're talking about like Mars butt fucking Pluto, and we're like, yeah, maybe it is kind of silly to get super attached to that. Like maybe something with that is affecting me, but I don't need to like pretend that that's all that matters, or that I have to stick to it dogmatically, right? Because I'm now able to laugh at it. I can free myself of that a little bit. And you're able to help us like wedge little pieces into our otherwise very stagnant and firm ideologies that we have and identities that we have, going back to that. That's actually hugely transformative and healing for people. This is why people share your videos all the time. This is why I came across them how many times before I was like, I'm going to try to contact this lady and talk to her. She's awesome.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think, yeah, it's like not taking yourself so seriously. That's all that I'm doing, is I think I'm exemplifying not taking the self too seriously. I think that's like what I'm about, which is so fucking funny because I actually take my comedy very seriously in this certain way. Like I work really fucking hard, and I like, and I work really hard. So in this certain sense, like I do take things very seriously, but then I do not take myself seriously. But the funny thing about this video that we're just doing right now, because like we're on a video, is like, I was like, oh my God, my boobs look amazing.
Yes.
I'm like, why do they look so great right now? And then I was like, I think I just have to let you know, so then the rest of the interview you can also like gaze
Just
upon their glory.
the glory of your breasts.
I think
It's
because
the
I don't
shape
always
of the
it's
shirt.
like it's the shape of the shirt, and I've never.
Not that your boobs
like
aren't amazing. The shirt just helps.
The shirt is like really helping, and it's like really framed, and I don't think I don't pay enough attention. I was like, you guys are doing great work.
You did a great job. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm like, actually, can you keep your eyes down here for the rest of this conversation?
We were just talking about this. I forget what, my boyfriend is also hilarious, and he was like, we need a shirt actually that says like, my breasts are down here. Like, can you please notice them? Like, they're great.
Yes, can you please notice them? They're fantastic. Yeah, that's so fucking funny. My breasts are That's a great fucking shirt. If you make that, I will buy that. I will wear it, and I will promote it.
I have a t-shirt shop, and he's an artist, so we're gonna do it and
dude,
make it happen.
That is so fucking funny. I would wear the shit out of the shirt, and it can almost like be the outline of it, and like the outline of the tatas. My breasts are down here. Yeah. Because it's like, it's funny. It's like we don't want to, as women. It's like you don't want to be sexualized in this way, because like, I think the problem with being sexualized, although this is like totally a tangent, is that sex is so complicated in culture and society that it's kind of dirty. It's not like I'm being sexual. I mean, some people, who the fuck knows? At least how I feel. Like when I'm sexualized, I feel kind of like exposed and uncomfortable. But then every once in a while, I'm like, but these tits are great, like people should like bask upon these boobies. But then I'm like, oh, it's such a paradox that I cannot solve. But it's interesting how sex can make you feel both incredibly dirty and incredibly beautiful at the same time. Your sexuality or your sex organs. Tits are not a sex organ. These are food bags.
Yeah, right. They happen to also feel nice, but
Yeah, they were a food bag for a human for 3 fucking years. I had these food bags.
Just carrying them around with you wherever you went, producing it, like no big deal.
Just producing fucking food,
I think it's part of the intention, because I've had people come up to me and be like, oh, you're like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sleazy fucking dick, get away from me. But then I've had people come up and be like, hey, you just have beautiful eyes. Like, I love your outfit today and stuff. And they're like the same compliment sometimes, but it's the energy behind them, right? Are you intending to objectify me and diminish me? Or are you intending to uplift me and,
Oh, makes me want to cry. I love that. And maybe like, I like feel tears behind my eyes. I do not cry very often because I am an android, but that was like so beautiful. I love that. Yes, it's the intention behind it. Ugh, so fucking true. Because I love complimenting people, and I do love beautiful people. Like I not like I value beautiful people over others, but I guess I see beauty in all people, and then I love to comment on it. And then I'm like, a sex offender. Like,
Yeah,
you know, I
right.
have to be
Like,
careful.
what's
But like,
allowed?
I'm always like, your eyes are beautiful, or like, I love like seeing beauty in people and then commenting on it. And yeah, I like that you said that, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to make people uncomfortable, but I
Well,
really do like when people, yeah, I love telling people they're beautiful.
when we were talking about this too, we go to the gym and like I stare at everyone's body. All bodies are fascinating to
Oh,
me. I'm like
so
that body,
interesting.
this body,
Yeah.
but some people will notice you and they're like, "Ah, like why are you looking at my body?" And I'm like, don't flatter yourself. I'm looking at everyone's body. I'm looking at my body
Yeah.
when I see a mirror. Like bodies are weird.
Bodies are weird. And we do look at each other.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, we do look at each other a lot. It's funny because I was driving the other day and I had my window down and I drove past these like two teenagers and they were just kind of walking and I was looking at them and I was thinking nice thoughts about them. I was like, oh, that's a really pretty girl, or I don't remember what the fuck I was thinking, but and she just goes, hi. And I was like, oh, hey. And it was such an interesting moment, you know, because she saw me looking at her and she just like said hi to me, because I wasn't thinking anything judgmental. I was just kind of appreciating her existence, you know, like, oh, look at that little cutie, you know. She was like, hi.
She felt it. She knew.
She knew. And I thought it was really cool for a teenager to just like be friendly like that. And it's funny how like we don't do that very often. I think I'm going to start saying hi to people more.
In my hometown, you waved at everyone, whether they were strangers or not. Hi, just no matter what. See them across the street,
Oh,
hi.
yeah. Yeah. We do that where I live too, like around the lake. If someone drives by, you give a wave, whether you know them or not, because it's like you're a human. But
It's something with the
I think,
ratio, like the number of humans, because you get into a bigger space and no one waves hi. No one says hi.
no. If you're like in New York, hey,
Hi,
hey,
hi.
hey, hi, hi. That'd be insane. That'd be banana pants.
Yeah. Well, before we shut down today and start to say goodbye, I want to talk about your other work too, because I didn't even know until I went to your site that you also produce films, short films, and otherwise, and other types of things. So tell us about that.
Oh God. Well, I'll tell you, I've never gotten into Sundance and I'm very bitter about it.
Everybody manifest Sundance for Toni.
I know, right? I'm like, fucking Sundance, Tribeca, always rejecting me. I've made like probably 10 short films, and I
That's
should
a
put them
lot.
all on my website eventually. I don't know why I haven't. Sometimes I just get so sad. And then a lot of them have gotten into festivals, but just, I don't know, maybe nothing's ever good enough for me. But I've made about 10 short films on a variety of topics, and you've inspired me to like make them public, because they're all just like sitting in my Vimeo with like me being bitter. You know, so like, why don't I make them public? That's a great idea. So I'm going to do that. Thank you. And I've also, you know, I'm a writer. I've been writing for many years, and I wrote a book, but I've sent it to a bunch of publishers and they don't fucking want my stupid book, but maybe eventually someone will, because I think it's a good book and it's already written. So, and I make films. Yeah. And then I do stand-up comedy.
You're an all-around artist. See, this is the true life of an artist too. What do they say? The art is never finished. It's only abandoned.
Oh,
That's a good thing though. That releases you from the need to make it like as perfect as you know it could be in your mind's eye.
Oh, I love that. So interesting. That's so interesting. Yeah, art is never finished. You just kind of like, goodbye, art.
Like I
It's
did
kinda
my
like
best.
I did my best with you and I had to move on. Yeah, that's great. That's interesting. Yeah.
And the
And
other
I've written a TV pilot I'm trying to sell. I'm
Ooh.
prostituting myself to the executives of the world, and I've gotten rejected from some pretty big people, if I do say so myself. But
the
still,
fact that they take the time to reject you is actually in itself praise, I think. Because I remember sending my book to hundreds of publishers, and I got 2 rejection letters and 1 maybe. And I was like, that's huge. Because the rest of them just never sent
totally.
anything, right? So if they take the time to be like, no, thank you, I'm like, that's a win.
That's a win. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I've gotten rejected by some pretty cool people.
See?
Yeah. Yeah. So at least they like know I exist on some level. And maybe one day they'll change their mind about me. We'll see.
We'll see.
But in the meantime, I just have to keep prostituting myself, you know?
I also was really fascinated that you had Ben Shapiro react to one of your videos. I was like, wait, what?
That was the greatest gift that humanity has ever given me. I have to say that my eternal gratitude to libs of TikTok for making fun of me and reposting my video even though like, this story to me is so fucking crazy because libs of TikTok reposted a video of mine, obviously to make fun of me. And I was like, and I wrote them, I was like, hey,
You're like,
I was like,
this is satire.
I was like, looks like my video got a lot of views for you. I mean, the last time I looked, I had like over 6 million views on there. It was the most viewed tweet that they had put. Okay.
Wow.
And it was on Reddit. It was like fucking trending because of libs of TikTok. And I just said, hey, and they fucking blocked me.
What?
And I was like, what? So then I went and found libs of TikTok on Instagram. And I was like, why did you block me?
I didn't even do anything.
And the guy was like, oh, a different person runs the Twitter. And I was like, well, can you ask them why they blocked me? Never wrote back. And I was like, libs of TikTok, what's up with you, man? Like, why can't we like connect on a human level that like, you may have been like hate posting my video, but that went viral for both of us. Like that was a win-win scenario. You can hate post me all you like. Like I had no animosity towards libs of TikTok. So that's how Ben Shapiro saw my video. Is I think because it went viral in libs of TikTok world and then like in Reddit. And I was actually really honored to have Ben Shapiro talk about my video. And he was kind.
And it was your reaction to his reaction video was like hilarious. So good. But I was also like, this is actually really healing for me. Because what I would do is I'd be like, bitch, I will cut you. What the fuck did you say about me? But then I would cry a lot. And then I would eventually get to your point where you were at the video. I would have to go through all of that.
So funny. That's so funny. Well, he also, the ways that he made fun about me of me were funny. Like I genuinely like was like, that's pretty funny, Ben Shapiro. And he's a Capricorn, I'm a Capricorn. I'm like, we have more in common than you think, you know?
Seriously. Well, and I don't, it's funny because as many views as you have that might be considered liberal, you also have just as many that might not be considered liberal at all. You are one of those people who transcend that spectrum, I think. And that's why I think the spectrum is so stupid because it doesn't actually allow for what we actually are.
Exactly.
So there's this very narrow capacity they have to understand, did not take in actually what you are, who you are, and you saw that and knew that.
I know. I was like, I am not a lib. Thank you very much. Yeah. You know, I am like an all expansive, like do not, but whatever. Goddess bless libs of TikTok till the end of time, you know?
Yeah.
Like, nothing but love for them for what they did for me. I'm sure that like not everybody feels that way, but which is totally fair.
No press is bad press.
No motherfucking press is bad press. I completely agree. And you know what? Like a lot of people will never unlearn that the military is like one of the greatest contributing factors to climate change and pollution.
I say it all the time. Yeah.
And they learned that from my gyrating. So.
Yes. I loved it. Well, and he's like, when he was like, oh, what is she just like gyrating or spazzing? I'm like, I mean, that's part of the funny thing. Like what?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's funny when people don't get that I'm in on the joke.
Yes.
I'm like, I know what I'm doing,
Very
sir.
intentional about this. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's a shtick.
It's funny. Well, what do you see as the biggest challenge of humanity right now? Just to drop a huge question on you right before we close down.
I think the biggest challenge of humanity is thinking that you need to agree with people to work with them.
Thank God. I don't think you and I agree on a lot of things, but there's doesn't matter. It will never matter, right? We're just people who can talk about things.
Exactly. And I just, and then I also just think we need to listen to our hearts and our guts more than being so stuck on our minds. Our minds can be really dumb. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Our minds can be dumb. We need to hold with equal value the heart and the gut.
I love that. Well, I'll share with people where they can find all that you do, all of your amazing work and the various places it is, and anything else you want to share with people that you might have going on or coming up or whatever.
I just like, please go to my social medias, and if I go on comedy tour, come see my show, and then just like pray for my ability to get my TV show and for someone to want to publish my book. And Yeah, that would be so cool. That'd be really groovy. And then hopefully you'll make that t-shirt and I can wear it.
Oh, I'm making a t-shirt.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely. It's done.
I'm really excited. I think it's gonna be what makes you millions in the
yes.
end. Yeah.
Manifest that too. All of the
On
above.
organic cotton. Yeah, organic cotton with like soy ink or whatever.
Yes.
Or whatever the good ink is.
Whatever the most sustainable way is, we're gonna do it. We're just confuse the shit out of people. Well, what are your final thoughts or words of wisdom that you want to share with everybody before we say goodbye?
Oh fuck! Final thoughts of words and wisdom is do something in the next couple of days that you're afraid to do.
That's the best advice.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing, and this has been your analog electric concentric dose of wisdom according to the hilarious dance ranting comedic genius Toni Nagy. Toni Baloney, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
This has been great. And there's a simple cure to all that ails humanity. Be true to yourself. When you let the truth out of yourself at every possible juncture, it also finds a way to sneak into every crack left in the hollow facades of the reckless masses running from it. And the truth is what will save us. So bring the humor and the joy to that truth, and you're even more likely to succeed, whatever truth you release. Travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Around the block, I just got an SOS from somebody's girl begging for a photograph of my watch. Both don't know what time it is. I don't know whose mind this is. Snowing in my sinuses, the league is gonna find the kid. Administer punishment. Underwater drumming squids. Fuckers wanna pummel and toss them in the rubble bin. What a dumpster fire. Motherfucking why? Tried to fuse it in. If your thoughts are living, grow tired. Split have been a mouthpiece in your mental housing. Sent to finish bounties on everyone who's doubting. There you have it, folks. There's the first round. Contestants know what they won. This insanity. God damn it, Chuck. Said tell them what they won. Took a little breather while we took a break. Went to a park and stole a rich kid's cake. Steak and marijuana too. Bumping some Nevada tunes. Wash it down the clown with some of Svetlana's brew. Who the fuck are you? That's what they keep asking. Kevin Garvey on a beat. International assassin. Smashing like my life's at risk. Caskets for the brightest spit. Rip mics tell arthritis hits. Still might make a life of this. Never will concede my run. Clever with deleted funds. Ever undefeated punk professor of the beaten drum. Well, goddamn.